And tell me what you remember of this event, and just go through the whole thing, and then we'll go back and kind of.
From what I remember, when I arrived on watch, the thing was already there. And when I say the thing, it's an orb of light. It's an orb of light, but not interfering with the planes launching, but as just sitting there. And we were going about 22 knots, and I don't remember the person that I relieved. And I've been trying to figure it out who it was that I had relieved, but I've yet to locate them. But I'm pretty sure it was there, and they were like, I don't know what that is. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like they had an attitude like, I'm going to my rack. I don't care. Don't even bother me about this shit. So this thing is there the entirety of my watch. And because the officers are ignoring it, I'm forced to ignore it. And I feel like it's like this weird, like emperor's clothes kind of scenario where the emperor isn't wearing any clothes, but you have to pretend that he is. And I'm not like a fully trained QMOW. I think I'm Karen at the time. And like, we hadn't even gone around the horn yet. And so I'm going with the officer of the deck, like whatever the officer of the deck is thinking, I'm going to agree with it because I had been through boot camp, which is kind of brainwashing in a way. But this thing is floating there. The officer of the deck and the conning officer are kind of, seems like there's this party going on around the captain's chair. Like they're not worried about anything. Ensign, he didn't say much to me. I included some of the stuff in my article, but he had this great quote. When Derek Smith came back up, and Derek Smith was on the catwalks, and he's right below this thing.
So Derek was a lookout, and he was outside the bridge on the catwalk, outside of the. On the superstructure, and he said that he was with another.
We've been trying to find her, but I don't think he was able to give me her full name.
You had a recording of a small interview that you did with Derek Smith, and I'm going to play just a snippet of that right now for the audience.
We're just bullshitting, talking, and I was explaining shit to her about lookout and stuff, and then we just start talking about what the hell, whatever from random shit we were talking about, and then an orange orb appeared over the flight deck, and she looked at me. I was like, what the fuck is that?
So it was behind you guys?
Huh?
It was behind you?
No, it was in front of us.
It was in front of you.
It was in front of us because we were on starboard forward.
Starboard forward.
So when you're on the island and starboard forward, that's you got I'd say about 70% of the flight deck in front of you. And I remember we were looking down at the flight deck, and you had airmen on there and everything, and me and her were just looking at each other, and then we looked down at the flight deck, and all the people on the flight deck was looking up at the shit. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I couldn't recognize it and shit, so I looked at it through the big eyes, and I still couldn't tell what the fuck it was. It was crazy, man. It was... Maybe it was... It's been 15, 20 years. From what I remember, I thought it was like oval-shaped, but like a sideways oval. But it wasn't solid, man. Like, it just seemed like a gas or something. And, I just couldn't put two and two together, man. I couldn't tell what the f*** it was, man. Yeah, I do remember, let me go back. I can't remember when it disappeared, but I remember it did disappear. And being that we had the sound powered telephones on, once it disappeared, I remember a couple minutes later, whoever was on the fantail had reported the same thing, man. I called to the bridge.
You called to the bridge. You didn't come up to the bridge?
Yeah, I called to the bridge, and I I said, what was it, Tops or whatever? I can't remember that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I called Top. I just said I got air contact. I can't remember all the
lingo. Yeah.
Yeah,
like but you.
But one thing I do remember, because we rotated with starboard forward. I forget the other two spots, what they were called. But we rotated, and then we'd go into the bridge, and we'd do helm and lee helm. I remember once we rotated, and I ended up going into the bridge, that one officer, I can't remember his name, but he made the comment. He's like, yeah, when I was a little kid, I told my mom I saw a UFO, and she told me don't tell nobody. I want to say it lasted a couple minutes.
Really? Because I saw it almost the whole night. I was on the bridge. And for my entire watch, for my entire 4-hour watch, that thing was there.
Well, I could be wrong, man. It's been so fucking long ago.
I mean, I could be wrong too.
I just don't. I don't remember all that shit. I just remember what the fuck I saw.
Maybe
I don't remember how long it lasted. I do, however, like I said, remember it had disappeared, and then the fantail had ended up calling it in. And I'm thinking in my head, like, what the fuck is going on, man? What is going on? It was crazy.
On the other side, on the catwalks, is Patrick Goki. Not only is he seeing that, he's seeing other orbs on the starboard side doing these half circles, but when he goes back to the fantail, he's seeing them again doing these half circles again, kind of like we're launching planes and they're doing half circles around the plane, around our ship. I mean, the surprising thing to me is that certain people didn't seem to see it, but I've always counted, what people saw and what they didn't see, what they pretended to see, or whether they were freaked out by it, which is the normal response. What was going on that ship was just strange, that like enchanted, that we were enchanted by something.
I just pulled up this 3D version. It's not Reagan, but kind of, well, I guess maybe it is. It says 76, so maybe it's pretty accurate.
There's four catapults, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right?
Right, and I don't know if they start, left to right, like you have the nose.
It's been a long time since I knew all that. The fantail is the very back. That's where the watch, the very back of the ship. That's in Navy speak, that's the aft. That's the aft part of the ship. That's where the fantail is.
So this is
that's where Patrick was standing when he was relieved. When he was relieved from port forward, he was standing watch back there.
So, like, if they were standing watch, obviously they wouldn't be standing on the flight deck. They would be like down here below.
Yeah. I think their watch is down there somewhere.
So, like down in this area.
Yeah, they own the deck owns all those spaces.
So then the starboard side would be the right hand side. Is that right? Where let me just go into the let's talk about the superstructure and the 3 levels we see here. You would have been on the second level of the superstructure inside this area here.
So it's watching. Let's say that this is catapult 2 right here. That's catapult 2, right? Yes. So that's about where it is, and it's watching the planes. It's watching the planes get launched. I mean, watching. I mean, for me, I was even though I'd never seen it before, I thought that this was natural, and that that this was an organic thing, that we would maybe another form of life, maybe, but something we would figure out in the future.
Where was Derek? Say, if I can swivel around, you can talk me into it. I can kind of.
Well, he was saying that he was saying in the recording anyway,
Yeah.
he was saying that he was on the island.
He said he could see, I think 70%, I think he said, of the flight deck.
This is where the lookouts, I believe. This is where they would be standing up here. Do you see my arrow?
Yeah, so standing
They'd
up.
be standing by, from what I remember, there'd be a lookout up here standing by the door.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, you kind of, you know, several times have described going to watch, and actually, because everybody else that was on the bridge seemed to be not paying attention to this, you kind of obviously went along with that, even though there's this conflict in your mind.
I took my position of authority very seriously. You know, that's what you're trained to do, to take yourself seriously. You know, like, so
you're looking out. I mean, it's
a problem when somebody tells you that it's a problem. It's a problem when somebody tells you that it's a problem.
Yeah, right. So you have a rank structure, and the officers of the deck were not acting like this is a problem. So then it's not a problem. Right. But you have a front row seat here because you're on the second level of the superstructure, and there's lots of big windows, and you have a clear
I'm seeing
view.
I'm seeing people on the flight deck looking up at it. So I know that I'm sharing an experience, right? Like that it's not, I mean, I just imagined that we would figure it out at some point.
Did you ever think that because no one was really paying attention, that this might be some type of U.S. craft or something like that, and that no one was talking about it because
we don't have anything like that. We don't have anything like that. You know, I
even
feel
at
like
the time you knew that wasn't our craft.
I'm working on, like, you know, navigation systems that cost like hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm seeing the most advanced aircrafts. You know, the Navy has the most advanced cryogenics program, the most advanced everything. You know, when people talk about like the government being able to control the weather, I know that that's bullshit, because if it was true, I would know about it. You know, I think there's people that have never been in the military and never had clearance that claim that they know. But I mean, I never had categorically that kind of clearance. I don't buy it, you know?
Right. And so can you, in the best kind of description you can give me, describe to your eyes anyways what this object looked like? Is there anything that kind of the average person could relate to in their daily lives, something similar? That I know that you use the word burning bush, but
I mean that when I say burning bush, and I mean that in the Eastern Orthodox way, because like I said, I've had a lot of time to unpack this experience, and I'm not, you know, I've had my own experiences, and my own beliefs are kind of irrelevant to this. But in the Eastern Orthodox Church, they explain the burning bush as unburnt energy. And I used to work with battery technology. In battery technology, there's this kind of mystical idea of negative energy. This, you know, like, and that's what again, we don't have, when you see it, you're entranced by the novelty of it. You've never seen it before, right? You've never seen the idea of negative energy, right? But it's there. You don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. The experience of seeing something you haven't seen before. That's what I hear from when you talk to Derek Smith. That's what he'll tell you as well.
Right. You know? Like you could talk about indigenous people the first time they may have seen an English sailing vessel approach. It's just something not in their lexicon.
I've heard that. Yeah. So, and in a way, they prophesized it too. Mm-hmm. In a way, they prophesized it too. And it says something. We don't really understand our own consciousness. I have a lot of questions, you know, still in this life. And that kind of keeps me going, because after the military, after being involved with war, I thought that this was the end of history, you know, and it isn't. You know, there's a lot we haven't figured out. So my description is the description from the Eastern Orthodox Church, where there's this idea of an unburnt energy, of a negative energy that you can see.
And it was orange. Did it have movement within it, or was it solid? Or
well, I would say it looks like it's on fire, right? It's both gaseous. It's both gaseous, and it looks like it's on fire at the same time.
So I'll read.
I can still see it. I can still see it in my mind when I close my eyes, because I spent a lot of time staring at it. This is at least a 4-hour watch, and I'm pretty sure it was going on before I got there and going on after I left as well. So, I probably would have got there at about 8 p.m. and left about midnight, just exhausted.
So even at 8, it probably would have been after dusk out there in the ocean. And so this was a luminous object.
It looked like it was moving. We were moving. It didn't look like it was moving.
It was like internally luminous. It was glowing then, like on fire, versus like, say, it being reflective light onto it, right? You're saying that this object was emitting its own kind of orange glow?
Yeah. And it wouldn't be like big embers of something, but it's a ball of movement, right? But it's not moving.
When Derek, the last time you saw him, he had a different experience about the length of time of this thing.
Yeah, well, his watches were shorter.
Right.
Yeah, but I wondered if there is a lost time thing there. But I can attest to the fact that it was a long encounter.
How many people do you think?
From being on the bridge, that it was not a short encounter. That is my. I know that their watches were shorter. That they rotated to different. That they would rotate to different positions. I had a nice warm watch inside of windows in a position of authority, and they had outdoor watches. So in a lot of ways, they got to see this thing closer than I did, and not through this bulletproof glass, that I was looking through. But
he mentioned that another watchstander, like you said, there were 3, I think, lookouts, and he said one of the others reported that he was seeing it on the fantail, like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's Patrick. Patrick said he rotated.
How many people do you think, if you just guesstimated, like during that time period that you recall, would have seen this object? Because
like a thousand at least.
1,000. I mean,
1,000.
Karol,
the people on the flight decks, all of the people. This is like 8 o'clock, so it's not like the whole ship is asleep. Maybe I'm exaggerating to say 1,000, but at least 300.
This has to be the biggest mass sighting in history, at least modern history.
I've always been surprised that it never came to light. For me, I wanted to be a famous writer. This is not that I want to be known for being the crew of. There's greater things that I've done in my life, and I've actually had more profound experiences in my life.
Just going to military doctrine and tactics, techniques, and procedures of a warship at sea, I imagine that if a F/A-18 sized, glowing orange, oval shaped thing hovers over an active flight deck, that something would happen. I can't imagine that General Quarters wasn't called. Obviously, there was some reason.
My Master Chief was in charge. he was the big player in navigation, right? Right, but he wasn't anywhere around, because 8 o'clock is 8 o'clock. The chief mess is full of chiefs. You know what I mean? All of the brass of the ship is relaxing, right? Besides the watchstanders. Yeah, I don't get it either. I never did. It's always been a question on my mind, but I started really, really thinking about it as the pandemic started. You know, I was like, I mean, for me, I when I got to New York, I was like, well, we really haven't figured out the nature of reality yet. You know, maybe it's not about UFOs a lot at all. Like I just was reading a lot of philosophy. You know, there's a lot of magic in the world still, you know, that you can find. But
there's a lot of mysteries still that haven't been explained. You know, I mean, that's one reason that I enjoy examining this material, like especially when you look at this sort of almost denial of something that's right in front of you. Like they don't want to tell.
But the emperor's clothes, but the emperor's clothes relates to a lot of aspects of our society. There's a lot of things that we kind of completely ignore, not just lights in the sky. You know, like plausible deniability is such an American thing, you know.
No one wants to take responsibility for waking the captain up or go telling the captain.
Right. Who's going to go tell the captain that there's a light over the flight deck? And how are you going to explain that exactly?
Yeah. So I wonder, you know,
are we going to wake the captain was a question that we would ask a lot at sea. Let's say that. And we never, ever woke the captain.